Hi everyone, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm going to talk to you today about something I call pockets of brilliance. But before I do, I want to let you in on a secret. I never wanted to be a product manager. I know, it's shocking, isn't it? I wanted to be a project manager. And I was a project manager, and I think I was a pretty good project manager. So it was with much hesitation when I was offered a product manager role to develop the UK's first smart boiler that I said yes. I was slightly reluctant. And that was because at the time, and we're going back some years now, there weren't very many product managers in their current incarnation around. And dare I say it, the few I'd met had all come across to me as a little bit smug, a bit evangelical, and not in the way we talk about positively. And I just couldn't really get on board with this whole mini CEO thing. No, I wanted to be a project manager, but I took on the product role, and I had no idea what I was doing. And I was very lucky that I could get away with it back then. But there were a number of Medium articles I would read and some very friendly, helpful colleagues. And then I just Googled my way through pretty much every meeting. But I quickly got the product bug, and I started doing customer interviews and iterative development, and I was loving it. But I always had a niggling voice in my head that said, you're not a proper product manager. You're not doing product properly. Has anyone ever felt like that? Anyway, I pushed on, pushed the niggles aside and carried on. And then I got an opportunity as a product leader to put a product function into an organization. And I thought, brilliant, this is it, this is my chance. This is going to be proper product management. And so I went in, I was pretty optimistic. I got in some analytics where there hadn't been before. I started talking to customers, which was a very novel idea to this particular company. I talked to the exec about outcomes over outputs. And that voice came back. But this time, it wasn't my own voice in my own head. It was my team who were saying, we're not doing proper product. We were still being gifted projects from the board. And one person said to me, we're just doing product theatre. Oh my God. Absolute killer blow. And so I worked harder. I put in more hours. I lobbied the exec harder. I mean, people must have been sick of me, the amount of evangelizing I was doing. Anyway, I left there at one point, and I took some time out, as I think every product leader now needs to do after a stint like that. And I wanted to give back to that product community who had helped me in those early days. So I put a message on LinkedIn and said, does anybody want to talk to someone who's in product? And I genuinely didn't think anybody would want to take me up on the offer. But over the course of a couple of months, I spoke to nearly 40 product people, ranging in different sort of levels of seniority. And what was really interesting is in some form or another, they all said the same thing, which is, I just feel like I'm not a proper product manager, or we're not doing product properly. Why do we feel this way? Well, if you go on LinkedIn, you can hardly move for thought leaders for all the latest tricks and tips and frameworks and things we need to do, things we should be doing if we want to consider ourselves proper product people. There are books and blogs and podcasts and endless things we can do. And sadly, AI is only making that more and more intimidating. We're not just expected to be product management experts, but we're also expected to be industry experts, despite moving industry every time I shift jobs. And in our day-to-day, we're supposed to be also excellent business analysts, excellent product analysts, stakeholder managers. Every now and then, we've got to stand on stage or in front of our stakeholders and be excellent public speakers, all whilst maintaining a very healthy work-life balance. But I see it differently. I don't see product as a destination. We're not going to arrive one day at the pearly gates of product where Marty Kagan greets us dressed in white robes saying, "Welcome, my child, come through to the product garden," where we are greeted by the gods of product, the likes of Melissa Perry and Teresa Torres, and they adorn us with a sash that says, "Proper Product Manager." No, it's not going to happen, I'm afraid. It's not how it works. No, I see it as our very long careers are made up of different moments where we do some things really great. Some things I call pockets of brilliance. Pockets of brilliance are small bubbles or moments or experiences we have in a team or our organization where we do some things really well, some of the time. We're not going to do all the things really well all the time. It is not possible. We are not going to do that. Holding on to that is making our jobs quite an unhealthy place to be. No, some things really well. And those some things, in my experience, have looked like two engineers who foresaw something coming down the road in 6 months' time, and they proactively came up with a solution, spoke to the exec, put it in place, and helped us avoid a massive issue. It's the trio who've come together for the first time, and two of them have never really done product before, and they do their first experimentation, and it goes horribly wrong, but they have a ton of learnings that they take into the next thing. I've also seen it where it's the product managers who get together ahead of quite an intimidating roadmap sharing session, and they align their message, they practice, they really harness their communication, and they align the stakeholders with them. These pockets, these moments, for me, add up across our careers like a patchwork quilt, with each experience being a patch in that quilt. And each patch will look and feel different depending on the environment in which it was made. It will look and feel different depending on the environment in which it was made. Because sometimes those patches can feel quite small and inadequate. Oh, I'm not doing a great job. This isn't a great place for me to be. But when you add it together with all the other patches of your experience, it adds to the strength and beauty of the overall fabric. Sadly, it's often with hindsight we realise we've been lucky enough to experience a pocket of brilliance. It's when we go to the next job and we go, oh, damn it, we did that really well in that last place. I really liked how we did that thing. And now I'm going to need to find a different way here. Because people change things. Even if you stay in the same team, someone will leave, someone else will join. It totally changes the dynamic of your team, right? So what goes into a pocket of brilliance then? Okay, so I talk about it in terms of values. So these values guide our behaviors. Are you okay there with the phone? Values that guide our behaviors. Capabilities, of which there are very many to learn. Lots, and seemingly more and more. And then people. That hard bit of how we actually interact with other people. And all of that is set within the context we find ourselves. And this is probably the most important bit that I'd like you to take away, is that that context really does influence how we can practice product. Because it is different everywhere. So all of this has to be flexibly applied. So how do we do it? We do it bit by bit. And I have had a lovely experience with a good friend of mine who joined me at one organisation. And she was looking after an energy insights tool that was B2B. And she arrived and she was gifted a very long backlog of features, which she was told by the sales team, you just need to do these features and we're just going to, all the money, it's just going to come rolling in. But Kate was curious. She wanted to learn. And so she started looking into the tool, and there weren't any analytics. So she said, I'd just like to know how many people log in to this very popular tool. And so she worked with an engineer, and they were able to just get that one piece of information. And it turned out 7 people logged in. 7. And when she went and spoke to the account management team and got to speak to some customers, it turned out they weren't logging in because they didn't like the tool. They weren't logging in because they had lost their password and there wasn't a password reset button on the login page. So she sorted that out. And she took that approach, just one thing, just ask one question. What can I do with the team I've got, with the information I've got, to shed a chink of light on what's happening here, what's really happening? And this kind of discovery is, I suppose, really exciting. I find that really exciting. And I shared this story earlier in the week, but I'll share it again. I went to the theatre earlier this year to see a Shakespearean play called Much Ado About Nothing. Don't know if any of you are familiar with it. Tom Hiddleston of Marvel fame was in the lead role, and he said the word discover in the Shakespearean way, which is to discover, like uncover the truth that is already there. And I love that idea that actually, when we talk about discovering, we're not just sort of searching in the dark. We are slowly uncovering the truth, bit by bit. But Kate didn't act alone. She worked brilliantly and collaboratively with the engineers, with the sales team, with the account managers, all to create some great success. So let's dig in a little bit more, excuse me, of what these values, capabilities, and people things I'm talking about. So I talked about a set of values that guide our behavior, capabilities we apply flexibly, and relationships we build with people, all set within our context. The values I'm talking about, they're not just these values, but these are the ones that I see time and time again demonstrated by the best product people I've had the pleasure to work with. And that's curiosity. So the value of curiosity driving the behaviors of staying curious to ask the question a bit more, dig in a little further. Curiosity that stops us being defensive when we're being asked questions by challenging stakeholders. Learning over being right. Learning over being scared to be wrong. Because if we stay in that place of needing to be right, we won't take the risks that ultimately end up with the biggest impact. We won't have that growth mindset to reassure ourselves that when things don't go quite right, we can still grow and learn and develop and get even better. Creativity. And when I talk about creativity, I'm not just talking about from a design point of view, but that problem solving that you were learning about just before me there. that ways of thinking about things differently, connecting seemingly unconnected things, and then collaboration, because product management isn't a solo sport. We need other people to help us get further, but also the enjoyment of it. There's a famous, I think it's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, and if you want to go far, go together. And that's what we do when we're at our best. Next, I want to talk about capabilities. And when I first gave this talk, I did like a quick capabilities matrix I'd found that I'd used. It's totally irrelevant now because our roles are changing so much. So what I wanted to share instead is, rather than, oh, look at these capabilities, think about what you want to do, is actually there are so many capabilities, and the capabilities that you're going to need to learn and develop are going to differ depending on where you are and what your role is. But it really is the mindset of how you approach those capabilities that really unlocks your potential. So this is a coaching framework called GROW. Some of you might be familiar with it. It's the idea of setting a goal, assessing your reality, so your context, recognizing the boundaries of what you can and can't do, seeing what your options are for that next step, even if it's just a small one, and then the will and the commitment to stick to it to make it happen. Because what I see so often when I'm either managing a team or in coaching is people go, it's fine, I've got a personal development plan. Okay, and it's for 3 months' time. Okay, so what are you doing now? Oh, no, I don't have time for it now, but by Christmas I'll definitely have time to learn this new thing. Like, okay, good luck. We've got to systemize our development so that it's working with us, so that we're doing it on a regular basis. It feeds into our work. Time isn't an excuse. We have to prioritize time for our development. If we can prioritize time to doom scroll on Instagram, we can prioritize time for our own personal development. I'm talking about myself in that, by the way. I've had to delete it. Okay, the last bit that goes into our pocket is our relationship with people. Now, people can sometimes talk about hard skills and soft skills, and those capabilities being the hard skills and the people being the soft skills. Now, I much prefer technical skills and human skills, but if we were having to put it one way, I'd say the hardest skills are the people skills. People come with their messy lives, their opinions, their difference, and they get in the way of what we want to do, don't they? It doesn't actually matter if we're a leader or an individual contributor, because we have to build relationships with people. And those relationships with people, if they're to be successful, need to be built on trust and safety and respect. But trust is a tricky thing. I'm mildly obsessed with Brené Brown, and she sort of works her way into every talk I do. She says, trust is not built in big, sweeping moments. It's built in tiny moments every day. It's how we show up. It's all the little acts. It's not standing up and boldly saying in front of your team, we're just going to share all our problems and you can trust me and it's all fine. No, it's built in smaller moments. She also talks about something called marbles in a jar, and how with each small trustworthy act, it's like adding a marble to the jar, and that jar fills up. But an untrustworthy act can empty the jar bit by bit, or all at once. Charles Feltman breaks trust down into 4 component parts in his book, A Thin Book of Trust. He talks about sincerity, reliability, competence, and care. So sincerity is meaning what you say, genuinely meaning what you say, and not just saying something for the sake of it. Reliability is a tricky one because it's doing what you say you're going to do. And some of us, who might be on the generous side, really want to do lots of things, but reality means you can't. So you have to be really honest to be reliable. Competence, so actually applying yourself and doing the job you say you're going to do and making sure that you're keeping yourself accountable of the quality of your work. And care. Do you really care for me? Do you really care for this business? Or do you actually care for yourself? Any moment now. There we go. Amy Edmondson in 1999 coined the term psychological safety. And psychological safety, if you're not familiar with it, is that feeling that you can trust those around you to fail, to speak up without fear of reprimand. Trust and safety in these relationships can be easy to build with people we like. And I had some feedback once, in fact, I think he's here in the room somewhere, from a boss who once said to me, "Pippa, you're really good at building trusting relationships with people you like." Oh, what about those people I don't like? Apparently that was a bit too obvious, unfortunately. But we're not going to like everyone. We're not going to like everyone we work with. That's just fact. But we can respect everyone because everyone comes with their own experiences, their own capabilities, their own values, even if they're different from ours. I'd like to say I'm much better now. You'd never know if I didn't like you. I'm joking. So you know now what goes into a pocket of brilliance. But product management is hard. It's hard. That's why we have these communities and we come to these events, right? And Dr. Angela Duckworth has written the book called Grit. And she talks about perseverance being that secret to success. That it's actually not intensity, but consistency that is most important. She says it's about relieving yourself of the judgment that gets in the way of enjoying the challenge. When I look back and I think about that niggling voice in my head saying, "You're not a proper product manager," that was a judgment that was getting in the way of my learning. And when I was listening and taking on from the team, "We're not doing proper product," that was a judgment that was getting in the way of my leading. So I want you to think about this for a second. What's a judgment that you're telling yourself? What's the voice in your head saying that's actually getting in the way of your learning or your leading or your chance to do something truly great? It's hard. I'm not denying that. However, if we can appreciate the context we all find ourselves in, if we can use our values as a guide to our behaviour, if we apply our capabilities flexibly, and if we build relationships with people bonded by trust, then we can all enjoy pockets of brilliance. Thank you.